deep in the heart of Central Texas. It's the Best of the Outdoors podcast, brought to you by Texas Fish and Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your humble host, Dustin Von Warnke, author, outdoor writer, videographer, speaker, blogger, podcaster, webmaster, a couple other things I do in the outdoor industry, but I won't bore you with all those here. Thank you so much for tuning into our show, and please, if you've not done so, subscribe to the show because it is free and it comes out every other week, bi-weekly, twice a month. And we've got a really good show lined up for this week again. But however you're listening, whether you catch us on YouTube or on Podbean or FM Player or Stitcher or iTunes or wherever you catch this podcast, be sure to subscribe and like the show. Give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. That helps other people find us, and we really appreciate that for sure. All right, if you have been keeping score on this podcast, this is episode number 49 officially as far as full episodes go, which means our next episode is going to be episode 50, and man, am I pumped about that. We're going to have a special show. I'm going to invite Mac and Prowler and maybe some other folks on the show, do some segments with them, but celebrating 50 shows this next podcast, which I'm really excited about. But what I wanted to do for this show, since we had such a fun time 2 weeks ago with Mr. Rex Holmes Jr. from Vapor Trail Scents, I wanted to have him back on because we didn't cover all that we wanted to cover on that show. And it's rare that I have a guest back on back to back, but I mean, this guy is just full of awesome wildlife biology and tried and true technology that he's used in the field with his products, and just general knowledge about whitetail deer and other wildlife in the woods. And I love this guy. I really appreciate him joining us again, and just really thought that his information is really good. One of the listeners to the show that I talked to the other night, he's an avid listener to the show. He said, "You just cost me some money on that last podcast," because he's getting ready to go out and buy some Vapor Trail Scent stuff. So, and I'm never really a product guy, as you guys know. I mean, obviously I'm sponsored by a couple of folks that don't quite sponsor the podcast yet, but I mean, I am personally a pro staff for quite a few outdoor companies, but I never really try to push products so much on this show as in I just want to bring you positive information and be an inspirational and motivational force and a source of hope for you to get out in the outdoors and really enjoy the best that it has to offer. And whether that's communing with God or Jesus, or communing with nature, or whatever the case you're into, for me, it's just a way to get away from the hustle and bustle of the real world and relax. And that's the reason why a lot of us hunt and fish and do other things in the outdoor world. So anyway, I really like this guy. I like his products a lot. I will tell you that much. I'm getting ready to place another order for my dad to get some product, some dig-a-hole product for his feeder up in Oklahoma. So we connected again on the phone with Mr. Rex Holmes Jr. Really enjoyed this. We'll get right into this next. Here's our interview together. Joining me on the phone once again is Mr. Rex Holmes Jr. from Vapor Trail Scents. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast once again, back to back, Mr. Rex. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, and you? And I'm kind of anxious to tell our guys there about, how to spray down.
Yes, that's one thing we didn't get to in the last show, which is why I wanted to have you back on, because you make the 33-point buck. That's what your scent eliminator is called, right?
Yes, and it's actually it's made out of the main plants that the animals love to eat, so it's a real good attractor at the same time.
Yeah, I smelled some of it this weekend, and what really caught my nose was the dig-a-hole. I got the sweet corn version of that, and for an attractant, man, that made me want to eat some of it. It smelled delicious, but the 33-point buck, definitely nothing to sneeze at. That's really good cover scent from what I've smelled of it and what I've heard other of your customers say. And tell us, I was just intrigued on the last podcast what you were talking about with the where to spray down.
Yeah, people, when it's natural, I mean, I thought the same thing till we really started doing our testing and learning. The number one spot we emit scent naturally is our hair and our head,
Yes.
Because that's where the biggest part of steam and the hottest part of your body is, so any scent killer out there, or scent eliminator, whatever you want to call it, that you can't spray on your face and your hair, and you might as well not even really honestly and truly, although I do say all the time, every little bit helps, and it does, but
Sure.
to have that confidence to be able to go out there and set in a stand when the wind changes and blows straight to your feeder or straight across your food plot, to
Yes.
have that confidence in a product, that you have to be able to spray down with that product.
Mm-hmm.
But that's our number one. And I remember when I was in high school, we took hair and put it in a petri dish, and that thing growed bacteria like the next day. The petri dish was full. It is a highly bacteria, which to have scent, you have to have bacteria,
Right.
to a certain, off of us, basically.
Sure.
So, and the other thing, to have bacteria, you have to have oxygen. Just
Mm-hmm.
like to have a fire, you have to have oxygen. The same thing. That's how your ozonics works. It takes the oxygen away so the bacteria can't grow and you can't have the smell. That's when they go in a house and they got dead animal in there or something or other, that's how they get rid of it. They take all of the oxygen out of the atmosphere, which takes the scent away.
Okay.
And that's how ozonics work. So your hair is your number one. Okay, so that's the main thing. If you wear a hat, which we all do in the woods, you want to take that hat off. You want to spray your hair down, spray your face down, your neck, and also spray the inside of your hat. A lot of people take their hat off and they spray their head and whatnot, and then you want to spray that hat also so that the scent eliminator gets into the fabric and protects it for a long period of time. Now, the best scent eliminator they is, which is the 33, by the way, will only when you're sweating like Katie barred a door out there in 90-degree weather, about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because what happens as you sweat, it comes out of your pores.
Right.
Even our deodorant we use, and and even though they're scent eliminated deodorants and what, they still got chemicals in it, and you still get that minute. A deer could pick up enough that to make them leave the area, not enough to make them blow and throw a fit,
Right.
But after about 2 hours, your pores are sweating out and bringing stuff out that in your enzymes. Enzymes are like, to me, are like Pac-Man eating. They're eating the bacteria and
I see.
killing the bacteria, and they only last so long, and you need it. So, but we've sat literally with the wind blowing straight to the feeder with the animals on the feeder. About 2 hours, they start to pick us up. I mean, you can tell. And then eventually, about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, they're going to leave. But
Yes.
you'll notice they start to pick up a little, they'll start and go and trying to sort it out. So when you're in a stand every 2 hours, you want to spray down. The other thing is the number two spot we emit scent. This is the one that blows everybody's mind because naturally they're going to think it's your crotch,
Right.
naturally, and that is a huge part that we emit scent. But the number two spot, believe it or not, is our feet.
Very good. And I was flabbergasted when
Now,
you first told me that last Friday when we talked on the phone, just casually, because I understand the importance of that. And on the podcast before our last one, Lou Murillo was talking about wearing rubber boots, but you want to season those rubber boots and not just put them on one day from the store because they're going to smell like rubber, right?
yeah, what basically that boot becomes an air compressor. When we take a step, just a normal step, we put like 300 pounds of pressure on that boot. So when we pick our feet up, our feet kind of come up a little bit and they go down. I mean, we're compressing air, we're pushing air out of the top of our boots all the time. And even though you got rubber boots, you're still, and it's moisture because your feet are sweating down in there,
Sure.
and the moisture's floating in the air and it sticks to, I mean, I can't tell you how many videos we got that we did this. We would literally walk across the trail and watch the deer and the hogs come to the trail, pick us up immediately. And if you spray I spray my socks down, I put my socks on, and I spray my socks down, I spray my feet down, I put my socks on, I spray my socks down on the outside again, and I spray inside my boot, and I put my boots on, and I spray my pants legs down before I put my boots, because here we have a lot of water in the swamps, and
Right.
we wear rubber boots with our pants tucked in. Now not all people don't do that, so
Sure.
that's the way we do it. But that's your number two spot. Then your number three naturally would be your crotch and whatnot like that. And that's why it's, if a person's in a position to do it, to get a shower right before you go to the woods.
Yes.
If you're not in a position to do that, you can take the wipes that they make, and you literally, and we do this when we go to the mountains, or we'll go out into the backwoods. We got a cabin out there, but we don't have any running water. We got electricity but no running water, so we'll and there's no creek there or pond or nothing like that, so we take those hand wipes and we actually take a bath with those, and it works. I mean, you don't get to wash your hair or whatnot like that, but you can take the antibacterial hand, antiseptic hand, and wash your hair, and then take a bottle of water and kind of rinse it out. Especially if you've been sweating a lot, and we do that. When we're out and about.
Well, the idea there is that it's killing the bacteria, which is causing the odor, correct?
Exactly.
Based on what you said earlier, that's just kind of what I figured. So
yes.
I just want to make sure I understood that. Okay, good.
Yeah. That's the biggest part of the scent that actual animals pick up on us. And naturally it's in the air and it's in a liquid. I mean, they don't only smell it, they taste it, and that's why they got those wet noses. A dog's the same way. When it sticks there, it's there, and they pick it up. They pick it up immediately.
Oh, that's good to know. That's really good to know. So, I mean, scent elimination so vitally important for bow hunting, but a lot of people just kind of throw all that into the wind. And I know I've been very conscious of doing this too when it comes to gun hunting. But I really think to see those bigger deer come out and really not set anybody on alert, you almost need to do it all the time you're hunting, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. The other thing is, we're our climate. We're in a climate change big time. When I was a kid, we had a prevailing wind, and you could hunt a prevailing wind, but you can't do that anymore. I get tickled when we're doing seminars and all. People, I hunt the wind. If you think that you can hunt the wind today, go stand around a fire.
Yes.
And watch how many times
that wind changes, right?
Wind changes, and it's the same way in a tree stand. If you sitting up there and you can take a little piece of thread or whatever and put on your gun barrel or on your camera arm or whatever, and you watch it, it'll be blowing one way 1 minute and it'll be blowing the other way the next minute. I mean, we don't have a prevailing wind anymore. And me personally, I think that the earth has changed its axis. When that tsunami hit over in Indonesia, the earth moved to like 7 degrees off its axis. And I think that's more what's causing the wind and the weather so much to change, more so than the greenhouse gases that they're saying and whatnot. I think it plays a really big part, especially in the way the wind blows. I mean, like yesterday, we had a north wind here. We hardly ever have a north wind. Now we have a north wind, pretty regularly. And used to, you could, if you were, north of your feeder, you didn't have to worry about nothing here. But now, you never know. When we
No.
went to the stand, and we still have a more south prevailing wind than we do a north. So my stand that we got in Saturday afternoon was north of the feeder, but yet the wind was blowing to the south like Katie bar the door.
Right.
So when Bo laid on the ground Friday night, he was actually south of the feeder, so we had a north wind, which was better, but we put that where we lay when we lay on the ground. We always try to lay to where the wind's blowing straight to the feeder, and we'll only be 2-4 feet from the animals. But the hunting the wind days are over. I mean, you can't do it anymore. It's just not going to work. Now we get blessed. God blesses us, and we get to kill deer, no matter even guys that don't never use any scent eliminator or anything like that. But it is so. It's like I had a guy call me yesterday. He said I had deer all the way around me. He said, I did not get out of my stand at 9 o'clock, and it was actually his first time to use the 33. He said, I just had to call you. He said, I ain't never seen nothing like this in my life.
That's great.
I could I couldn't even get out of my stand. He said, normally they ain't a deer there.
Yeah, that's a good product testimonial for you right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you get calls like that all the time, which is the thing that amazes me about your products is that they work, and I've certainly become a fan recently. But, you're right. There's so many variables in hunting, period. There's so many variables in wind change, and, every hunting experience is a unique one. Would you agree?
Yes, it's that's why we love it so much.
Sure.
Because you don't never know what's going to happen. We go fishing. There's you might get 100-pound fish. You never know what's going to happen.
That's life in the great outdoors, right there. So.
Exactly. I mean, one day I'm sitting there and a squirrel's coming down the tree right beside me. All of a sudden, I like to jump out of the stand. A dadgum hawk come right over my head and grab that squirrel.
Oh my goodness!
Me, yeah. And I mean, it was so quick. And we was filming one day, and I'd give anything if we'd had camera on, but we didn't. The guy was laying right by the feeder, and we had some limbs in front of him, to kind of block him out, although he was in a ghillie suit. And a red bird landed on that limb right in front of his face. And that hawk hit that red bird, I mean, wide open, went right into his face. And it all happened so fast, he didn't know what happened,
Yeah, it's kind of like that time. It reminds me of, and I've told this story on the podcast before, so excuse me if you've heard it. But Jackson, my son, and I were fishing last Labor Day weekend, actually, and not this past one, but 2016. And we're reeling in a perch, which we like to just go jerk perch just for fun. And basically we rolled one in, or we were reeling one in, and he big old bass comes up and jumps out of the water and grabs it midair and runs off with it. I mean, I could live 100 years and maybe never something like that happens again. But I mean, it's those memories you create in the outdoors, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. One time, me and my dad was in the canoe fishing in this lake, and he had a bass on, probably about 2 pounds, and it was wrapped around. I was in the front of the canoe, and he was in the back, and the bass was wrapped around a stop under the water, and
Right.
I looked, the line was barely on it, so I just reached down there with the canoe paddle and was going to push the line off of the thing, and when that paddle was molded, it had a sharp edge around the outside, and that sharp edge, and my dad had that tension on it real tight. When that paddle hit that line just broke.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
that bass was in such a hurry to leave there, he swam right up that paddle and right in the boat, right between my feet, And my dad said, "Well, that one's gone." I said, "Nope, he's right
He's
here."
riding the boat. What a story. That's why I love the outdoors so much, because the unpredictable happens so regularly. You got plenty of campfire stories, so
Yep,
yeah, no,
yep.
that's great.
You know, just sitting here thinking, one thing I wanted to tell you, the people listening and whatnot, is about, why a two doe estrus is better than a one doe estrus. You
Yes.
ever you ever thought about that?
I never
Ever?
have. I mean, I've only used one doe estrus in the past, and those come at a premium, like we were talking about before the show started. Those come at a premium price, and I've used quite a bunch of the regular ones that are in the market. You make one that's what is it called again? I forget. I've got one here at the house, but it's a doe
We
fawn.
call it,
What is it?
we make a DBY.
DBY. That's what I mean.
That's what I'm, yeah, doe buck yearling. That represents a bedding area.
Okay.
It actually has a little bit, teeny tiny bit of food source in it. So when an animal gets, if you're using the DBY and the deer get downwind of you, they think that there's a bunch of deer over there having a smorgasbord,
Right.
basically, is what it does. Which happens when, most deer, they're like us, and when they go into their bedding area, they got a mouthful and they sitting there chewing on it, and of course the saliva and the moisture is getting in the air and it's going downwind. And when other deer get downwind, they know they're over there and they over there eating and this, that, and this. So
Sure.
I'm gonna go over there and check that out,
Right.
No, and I mean it really it works. It's really, I mean, other companies make basically the same thing, and it's one of those things that just works because deer are real curious. All animals are curious.
Sure.
I mean, you literally can't tell you how many times. I mean, the other night I turned the green light on. There was some deer out in front of me, and I was gonna film a little bit better. And I turned the green light on, and the doe, she never seen that before. Didn't know she. I mean, she walked straight to the dead gum. I was in a shooting house about 4 foot off the ground. She walked straight to the shooting house. I mean, right dead at me. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, here she comes.
She's coming right for me.
Yeah.
Really one of those cases. But you make what is it called? Sheila something or other for the
Yeah.
doe rearing?
Yeah, we make the My Sheila.
My
is
Sheila,
our,
that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yes, that's our estrus scent. Uh, our doe and heat basically, and we collect from two does at a time. We'll collect 1 gallon, and that's the other thing that people don't really realize. A deer urinates about 8 ounces at a time. Anywhere from 8 to 12 times a day.
Wow.
So there is a ton of urine in the woods. Those guys that like in trying to say that EHD and whatnot's passed through urine, and well, that's bull malarkey, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got these pens out there with 8 or 10 deer in them, and only one of them has got EHD. So if it was passed by urine, every one of them, I mean, they in a little 1 acre pen. They're in the urine and licking and tasting and everything all day long. If it was in the urine, they all would have it.
Right.
I mean, and that's just one of those things I disagree with them on, and I always will. The Our doe and heat, the My Sheila, we collect from only two does, and it never gets crossed. We don't, when we're bottling it, every time we get through with what we make it, we take 1 gallon at a time and we make it. We put it in a 4 ounce bottle. It comes in a 4 ounce bottle, and we put it in that 4 ounce bottle one at a time. When we get done with that 1 gallon and we get it in the bottles, then we take and we wash everything out, and we start over with another two does that we've collected. We'll collect that gallon. We'll get, if you collect pretty much all night, all day, you'll get a gallon off of each animal.
Whoa.
So you get 2 gallons, of two doe estrus. Now, you can collect one doe estrus, and there's a lot of companies that do it. But in reality, one doe estrus is not as good. You're going to get better results and see more animals and get more chance at, more mature deer with a two doe estrus than you are a one doe estrus. Now, I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot of companies say that's, but here's why. Okay, just to kind of simplify it a little bit and make it in something that we would do. Okay, let's say I walk in the restaurant and I look over there in the corner, and there's the most beautiful woman with this guy I ever seen.
Yep, we've
I
all
mean,
been there.
she is drop dead gorgeous. This dude's about 8 foot tall, weighs about 300 pounds. Ain't no way on this earth I'm going over there fooling with him. You know, ain't gonna happen. But now, if I walk in that room and I look over there, and there that dude is, and he's got two with him.
You got a chance.
Two of them, you got a chance. Okay,
I see.
you got a 180-inch buck that whoops everything in the woods. Okay, and your next buck in line, let's say, is 160 inches. He may come around there, but he may not. Just depends. I mean, those bucks have temperaments just like we do. You've got young ones that are real cocky and whatnot, and they'll come in there and mess with him, but not all the time. But if that one that's not real cocky or whatnot, and he coming through the woods and he smells these two does that are hot and ready to go, and he smells Mr. Bigfoot over there too, he said, well, he can't handle both of them.
Yep.
I might, there's a chance.
Hmm.
There's a chance. It's one of those scientific things if you think about it, and as far as us filming and what we do, we get a lot more bucks off a two doe estrus than we do one doe estrus, and we just don't see the need to put more, cost in our hunters, pockets. So
For a
we
single
just
doe.
make
Yeah, that makes
for a
sense.
single doe.
Right.
There's just no reasoning behind it, other than to make more money. And with me, anytime you make something about money, it's gonna cause you a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's just the way the
Mhm.
world
That's
works.
just
I mean, especially
yeah.
in hunting, hunters, it's said in fishing, that more men are caught by fishing lures than fish. But, we all have our kind of favorite that we've had in the past of deer urine or whatever the case may be. But I mean, I like to concentrate on what the biology is, like what you've studied. And this is fascinating to me about the two does versus one doe estrus. And you also said something that intrigued me last podcast. The 40-degree rule with doing doe estrus, because a lot of times in parts of Texas, especially South Texas and Central Texas where I live, the weather doesn't get down past 40 degrees in a lot of cases. Why? What's the rule on that?
Yeah, the reason I just when I was a kid, my grandpa said, "Man, I wish it'd get cold. I wish it'd get cold." And just when the temperature gets down to around 40 degrees, that dough is steaming, so
Okay,
much more. See,
I
there's
get it.
so much more steam coming off of her and going. And when we breathe, you get down to around 40 degrees, you breathe in the morning, you can see the steam in your
Sure.
breath, in the same way. So there's just more scent in the air when
Yes.
it's down 40 degrees, and that's why I always stay under 40. And the bucks know this, and when it's a little cool morning and they get a sniff or whatever, they're more tend to believe it, especially when there hadn't been any other does in the area, at the time that are in estrus. And that's the other thing we can do. Once it starts to get cool, we can make mock scrapes, and we can spray the bottom of branches and spray bushes and put dough and heat in our block of woods. We can literally make them bucks think, hey, this thing's fixing to go.
Yes. I get
You
that.
know,
I get that. I was just
and
curious the biology behind the 40-degree rule, if you will. So,
yes,
but cold, if
yeah,
it's not 40 degrees, in some cases, as long as it's cold, that makes the sense for that aroma, that smell, that scent to get out, and be more believable to the buck. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay,
yes. It
that makes
just
sense.
makes it more natural.
Hmm, that's great.
Yep,
That's
yep.
great. Um,
Do you know what a deer's normal body temperature is?
So you were telling me on the last show that it's 112 degrees is what that if when a doe squats and pees, it's 112 degrees coming out of her body. Would that be the
Exactly.
the the temperature of that deer? I've never studied that before, to tell you the truth.
Their actual body temperature is 104 degrees, and there's a reason for that. God made their temperature 104 degrees so that they could withstand the cold. I mean,
Right.
can you? We're 98.6.
Yes.
Can you imagine if we was 104 degrees, how much more cold weather we could stand?
Sure. That's a good point.
I mean, it would make a huge difference and that's how they do it. They can survive those cold winters because their body temperature is more than ours. So even on 100-degree day, they're emitting scent when they're walking around at 104 degrees more so than us really and truly on 100-degree day are because heat rises and moisture rises
Yes.
per heat. So we're 98.6. We're not going to put as much scent in the air really on a 100-degree day as we would on a 70-degree
Hmm.
day. You know what I'm saying?
I see
So in
that.
kind of a double negative in there in a way, and that's why your scent eliminator is so important. I mean, and when you're in the stand and you're spraying doe and heat out, to bring a buck into you, that doe and heat is going directly downwind. And that's why the stuff never really ever worked as good as it should have for people, is because the buck is coming straight into the wind and he smells them.
Hmm.
Their scent eliminator wasn't good enough, and he smelled them, and 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 turned and didn't come that way. And of course, they never knew he was
Yeah,
coming,
and you
so
never saw it. That was my point
you never
earlier.
saw it.
You never
So
saw it, so you never knew it was
yeah,
there to begin with. And you were like, "Oh, I wonder why I didn't see
yeah,
any deer this morning." So it's so vitally important
yeah.
when you're using cover scent, to use a good, scent eliminator and a good,
Hmm.
My Sheila or what's the other one, DBY.
Yes, the
Okay,
same way with hunting a scrape line.
right.
Hardly any deer. I think I've killed one or two deer my whole life on a scrape line before, we came out with the 33. And the reason being, the buck always comes from downwind.
Yes.
And a lot of times he don't even go directly. He'll walk downwind and smell. He'll know if a doe's been over there and left or whatever. A lot of times we would never even, I can remember all kind of people saying, oh man, I seen him. He was out there and he went, well, he knew you was there. I mean, he smelled you. What the only reason he didn't come in is because he smelled you when he walked downwind. That's why hunting scrapes, if you're a scrape hunter, you want to be scent free. I mean, you have to
Yes.
be. You don't want to be, you have to be. If you're not, the animal's not going to come to you.
They'll
It's not
circle
going to
downwind and
happen.
smell the human scent and then never come in. Wow.
Yep. Yep. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
it's just all part of it. And that's why the Native Americans, what we're doing today is the same thing that the Native Americans did 100 years ago. And we're basically using some of the same plants that they use. And I mean, that's where we got our ideas from
Sure.
in reality. We went back and researched as far as we could go and dug everything we could out. And then we just started playing with this and that, and God gave us the right thing to do. Well, actually gave Sammy Corley. He was the guy that come up with the actual number one scent killing ability of this product.
Okay.
You know, and
Hmm.
this guy he can sit down and make you a perfect spearhead in about 5 minutes. He'll
Wow.
walk out there. He'll walk out there and sit down in the yard and pull the grass up and weave you a bowl. Yeah, I mean,
Old
I'm
school. Ain't no
serious.
school like the old school, right?
I'm telling you, this
That's
guy. I
great.
mean,
That's way old school.
yep,
Wow.
everything the Native Americans did, he can do it.
Wow.
You know, and that's basically. I mean, the Native Americans they didn't shoot uh, an animal at 20 yards. They shot them at 5 feet.
Hmm.
6 feet. They'd see which way the buffalo was going. They go out there and lay down in the grass. When the buffalo got all around them, they went to shooting them.
Hmm.
That's how they killed. And the buffaloes wondering, they'd stand there, what in the world's going on? Finally, they said, "Oh, we better get out of here." By then, they
It's
done
too
killed
late.
them, a
Yeah.
bunch of
It's too
them.
late. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah,
But
and
this
that's
is
what we
this is
do.
that same technology that's you going into your products is the same technology they use. That's really neat. That is
Yes,
really
that's
neat.
how we did it. Everybody said, "How did y'all do that?" That's how basically how Sammy did it. And when we constantly doing things, to make it better, and we learn things as we go too. I mean, 2 years ago with the doe and estrus, I said, "This is it. We will never be able to make this any better." And every year since then, we have made it better. Right now, uh, the the top doe urine can only be 50 parts estrus. That's as high as any doe has ever been. Okay, and we won't collect unless that doe is 30 parts estrus. If she gets under 30, we don't collect, and we test it before we do. I mean, and as far as I know, no other company does that.
Well, I mean, that's an
Yeah,
attention to detail. I think it needs to go into a product like that because there are a lot of folks that buy it off the shelf, at Academy or wherever, and then wonder why, how is this made? You guys have really gone into the details of why you want to take the doe urine at that instead of just extracting all of it and marketing it in mass amounts.
yep,
I think that's
yep.
that's very important. I think that's important for our listeners to hear that actually product development goes into a product like this, and it's not just spray and pray and just hope that it all works. There are a lot of companies out there that just are interested in the bottom line profit and not at the hunter's best interest.
I got a picture yesterday of a little girl killed a spike, and I know her daddy. He sent the picture to me. She's 7 years old. I mean, you cannot believe the smile on this kid's face. She shot this deer at 11 yards.
Mm,
They was other deer that was 8 yards. I think he said there was 14 deer there in front of them, and the wind was blowing straight to the animals. The little girl shot it with a crossbow. 7 years old, and she was in the blind. Her mother was in the blind, and the daddy was in the blind. All three of them in the blind. The deer downwind, and she
goodness.
shot it at 11 yards. I mean, that's and of course, I mean he did. I mean, he's been using the 33 for a long time, and he knows, you don't do that. You would never
No.
get but that little, I haven't posted it on my page yet, but I'm going to. I mean, the smile on that youngin's face. He's done blooded both her cheeks up, and she's got the biggest smile yet. That's what makes it
Yeah,
worthwhile
that
to
makes
take the
memories.
time to make this right and to do it. And when I see that, and I've had guys, send me pictures of. I had a guy last year. His son set. Now this deer was killed in a ground blind. Also, they sat on the ground with the deer. Okay, a guy last year, they was in a ground blind. Him and his son. His son was probably 8 or 9. I don't remember exactly, but he shot his deer at 5 yards. You know, the daddy sent me. It
Oh
was
my.
it was a rack buck. His daddy sent me the picture. Said it was. I think it was the last day of the season too. He just thinking. The daddy was just thinking. He said, if it wouldn't have been for your product, we would have never got this deer. It would have never happened. I mean, he was just thinking, and that's what makes it, so much
Sure.
worth taking the time to make sure it's right. And I mean, we literally do that. If we pour a bottle, and a lot of times, and we say, you'd say, oh, that's enough, but I said we
Right.
don't. We put more in there. If we think it's a little bit lower, it may be even a hair low. We pour more in. We'll go back and pour more in there. We just. I mean, that's what we do. We doing it for the hunter. I mean, I want every person out there to kill every animal they can.
Right.
That's my goal. That's what we work for, and that's why we come up with this stuff to start with.
Right.
And believe it or not, when we first started, and guys get their hands on this, they wouldn't tell their own daddies.
Mm-hmm.
They said, oh no,
Keep it a
this is my
secret.
secret.
Yep.
I ain't telling.
That's there.
I had a man that owns a bow shop. He killed 6 deer for his son. His daddy, what are you doing? Finally, his son found where he hid them, and said, what is this?
You're holding that on me, old man. So, yeah, no, that's great. And yeah, I talk about that. I wasn't going to mention this, but the other day, I was at one of the deer processors. I do computer work for Brisbane Deer Processing, and they're based here in Central Texas too. And I was over there doing some computer work. They showed me a picture, which I put on their website, that of the 7-year-old with a crossbow that killed this monster buck. I mean, it's his first deer too. So I guess my only question is, good Lord, where do you go from there? I mean, you killed like a 12 point, So,
Yeah, exactly.
but
And that
yeah.
happens a lot. And it really and truly, in a lot of cases, it ruins it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, kill a spike first, kill a doe first, but I mean, not, but each to their own, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not that big of a deal, but I was just amazed. And I got my son, who's 8, out in the backyard the other day, and we took out my Barnett Raptor reverse, and he was like, I don't know. And I said, well, just give it a try. And we've got good backstops here and ready to go. And he hit just above the bullseye with his first shot with the crossbow. I mean, I could not be more proud. I posted it on Facebook. So,
Yep.
I'm a happy dad when I can get kids out in the outdoors shooting and hunting and doing stuff like that and fishing and everything. That's really where my heart is and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome with them youngins. I mean, and you don't never know what they're gonna say.
Exactly. Kids say the darndest thing, as the old book from the 50s said, so.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't never know what.
No, that's right.
That's why. So when I'm filming, you only got so much battery time, so you're not trying to. But really and truly, with a kid, you don't never need to shut that camera off, because you don't never know what they're going to turn around and come up with next. And I hunted with 2 kids in Tennessee at a kids hunt, and we hunted all weekend together. We hunted Friday afternoon and Saturday and Sunday, and by Sunday afternoon, actually we killed 4 deer that they each of them killed a doe and a buck, and on the Sunday they had listened to us they knew more about the 33 than we did. They had it all logged in, and we had them down there with the deer and all, and they went to talking about the 33, and I got tickled, at listening at them, and I was holding the camera in my hand, didn't have a tripod, and I started laughing, and the camera.
You ever started shaking?
Just listen. I mean, you just don't never know what they're going to say.
I love kids in the outdoors, man. That is a blast. I mean, I just get such a rise out of my son. I'm going to start taking him. I took him a few years ago, and he really wasn't quite ready, but now that he's 8, I think he's ready to at least go out and experience that. And my father-in-law thinks we need to wait for him to shoot his first deer, but now that he's getting good with the crossbow, I'm thinking, we may do something sooner. But, there are kids younger than him killing deer every year, and I just love, that appreciation for what nature is, for the biology that's there, like you and I talked about on this show, the intricacies of why you do certain things a certain way. I mean, I did a podcast with Michael Foster a while back on small game hunting and just the hunting fundamentals that we teach our kids. It's not just about sitting in a blind and shooting a deer. It's about getting out there and seeing what a scat is, and knowing what a trail is, and learning how to still hunt for squirrels and that kind of stuff. It's so much a combination of things.
Yep. Difference in a hog track and a deer
Yes.
track, rub and a scrape.
Sure.
And I mean, it's a constant, and we don't realize it as much when we're young, but then when you get older and you don't got your parents anymore or whatnot, you think, my golly, look at everything they taught me.
Yeah. Really. I mean, seriously.
Thing I learned.
That's what it's all about, transferring that knowledge from generation to generation, which is one reason why I host this podcast every 2 weeks, is just to kind of get that info out there. And I know we've got a younger audience out there listening, because a lot of them are into downloading podcasts and stuff. A lot of the older folks aren't, but, I love sharing this info. I mean, you've been an incredible guest to do that with, so I want to thank you for the second time for being on our show. So.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. There's nothing like. I mean, I'm a very blessed person too. I get to go and and speak to groups of kids with the NWTF and what that. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I love it so much, and I mean, I try to really, and I talk about this just about every show. I try to really talk about, the next generation is all that we really have as hunters these days, because there's such a decline in the sport, and in the sportsman, philosophy and everything, because kids have so many different things that they can go do on their quote unquote free time now. They've got video games, they've got stuff that we didn't even have as kids, and I grew up in the 80s, and but they constantly have other distractions that occupy their time. But I mean, spending that time in nature is so beneficial. It's so communing with nature is so important, and just getting that time with God or whatever your belief is. It's my communal time for my spirit, if you will. I know that's kind of deep for this show, but for me, that's what hunting and the outdoors and fishing and that kind of stuff is for me. And I'm sure it's somewhat for you too, wouldn't you say, Rex?
Yes, most definitely. And taking the kids out there and in the woods and whatnot, you've got to think about, always have plenty of drinks, always plenty of stuff for them to eat,
Right.
and if the bugs are really bad, you don't, carry insect repellent, even though it's not something you really want to do, but you have to make it, comfortable to a certain degree to them,
Yes.
till they get a little bit of age on them anyway.
Right.
Make it, because just like you take a 7-year-old little girl out there and the bugs eating her alive, she's not want to go back.
Right.
You have to think about all of that. Don't just make it comfortable for yourself. Make it be thinking about them, because they've never done it before. It's going to be a new experience.
Yes. Make it accessible for them. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us. We're about out of time for this show, and I just want to just can't thank you enough for being on, and the knowledge that you have imparted to our audience has just been tremendous. So I just thank you again.
Thank you, man, and we really enjoyed it, and we appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, they can go to our Facebook page or website, vaportrailsense.com, and my cell phone number's on there, and they can call me anytime.
Yeah, you're just so accessible. I mean, for somebody that owns such a great company like this, I mean, you and I was saying this in the last podcast, we call and just shoot the breeze with each other all the time. And I mean, you're so accessible to talk to with questions and comments, and will this work for this, or whatever the case may be, you've got an answer for it, or if not, you can find out an answer, kind of like I can with the magazine. So I mean, I love that about you, Rex. I love how easy you are, approachable you are. So that's great.
Yeah, man. Well, you be careful, and we'll talk again later, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rex Holmes Jr. What an awesome guy. Awesome information about whitetail deer and hunting and just about any animal out there. You know, I use a scent for finding danger and detecting people and other animals, you know, that and it's really good to control your scent in the woods. I mean, there's so much more that you see. There's so much more you can do. There's so many things you can pull off if you just control your scent and take some of the tips that we offer to this podcast with you. And I love doing this. I love this show. I love this opportunity to share with you the different things that are going on. And something else I wanted to bring to your attention about the show, and like I said earlier, we're celebrating 50 episodes in the next podcast, so I'll try to make it as special as I can. And that's been a big deal because we've been around for almost 3 years now. We started in the spring of 2015, and you look at 2017 and 2016, and now we're approaching 2018, and it's really cool that we've been around for that long. And one of the outdoor podcasts that are out there, and obviously we're part of the Texas Fishing Game, Voice of the Texas Outdoor Nation, and we're promoted in their newsletters. And I wanted to make sure that you subscribe as well to our magazine if you've not done so already, especially if you live around Texas. It's only about $20 or so for a year, and you also get the digital version for free, or you can just register for the digital version at fishgame.com. That's fishgame.com. And also wanted to bring up the weekend that I spent here recently, a couple of weeks ago, between our last show and this show with Crosswater Outfitters, which is my fishing ministry. It's not my ministry, but it is a ministry I belong to, of a lot of other faithful Christian guys that basically come together to serve each other and serve the folks that we have at these events. And we do several of these events throughout the year. This is our first one of the fall, which was the WTU, the Warriors in Transition Brigade Unit. You know, I've talked on this podcast a lot about, you know, the purpose of influence is to help those who have none. And Rick Warren said that, the author of The Purpose-Driven Life. You know, I really try in this podcast just to show cool things in the outdoors that people are doing to give back, and cool things that people are out doing. Of course, hunting and fishing and everything. It's a lifestyle. It's conservation. It's preserving the hunting and fishing stuff for the next generation. It's taking care of ourselves, taking care of our brothers and sisters that do this with us, and just providing for your family meat. You know, if that's what you're into. That's what I'm into. But you know, the one thing I learned about, because we had about 13 different soldiers, 13 different boats, and their families at this event. And it really made me think again we're so blessed in this country to have freedom. We're so blessed in this country to have, you know, love and support and caring and social services and all kinds of different things that we are provided that we take for granted every day. You know, find an opportunity out in the outdoors to get you involved with something. That's what I prayed for years and years before I met Crosswaters in 2011. And I was introduced to them by Marty McIntyre, who's the bowfishing guide at GarQuest. And I was introduced to him by, you know, winning a GarQuest gift certificate at Hill Country Bow Hunter Shoot. You know, it all kind of, you know, that's how I met Rack and Prowler. That's how I got in touch with Texas Fishing Game. It's kind of all a God thing, the way that it worked out in my industry walk. But, you know, I really I've been so blessed in this industry, and I know many of you have been blessed in life, you know, not just necessarily in the outdoor industry, but have been blessed around. We're blessed to be a blessing. And I definitely want to open up that idea to you as a listener, and just see, you know, if there's any possibilities of places you can possibly plug in your community, in your local area, where you can give back, where you can serve those who have served you, whether it be the case of taking a soldier fishing, whether it be a case of joining an organization like Crosswater Outfitters, or joining an organization like Camp Agape, which I volunteer at every summer as a buddy, and I've done videos and that kind of stuff for them in the past, and really enjoy, because those are hurting kids that basically have lost a loved one, a very close person to them, that are age 7 to 12, that come to that camp. And a lot of them have lost parents. A lot of them have lost siblings. I mean, I just encourage you to get out there in your community, wherever you are, whether you're in the United States or whether you're within Texas, whatever the case may be, and just learn to give back. Give back some way. When I was growing up, one of the best memories, and I may have shared this in the podcast before, I don't remember, one of the best memories I had with my dad was us going to a boys' town little kid, I forget what his name is, but we just, changed his whole outlook on life by a fishing trip with my dad and his friend JP. And, it really touched me that even back then I was kind of being told, to give back, and I give back in a lot of different ways and a lot of different people through a lot of different organizations now. But, I'm blessed to be a blessing, and so it's important to be a blessing. To me, I feel willed and called to do that kind of stuff, and I hope you will as well if you search in your heart, if you pray about it, whatever the case may be, just to find some places to plug into in your world of the outdoors, or in any other part of your life that there's people that are in need, and there's people all over the place that are in need with different things, and may not just be hungry or thirsty or whatever the case may be. They just may be in need of some hope and some inspiration and some motivation and some just spoonfuls of that. And that's what I try to provide in this show, and inspire you to go out and have the best of the outdoors. So thank you so much for watching, reading, listening, everything that we're doing. We're getting ready to launch a new program called Hunting School at Texas Fish and Game, probably sometime in November, and I'm going to be writing some of the stories for that. So I've got a couple of appointments to get that stuff lined out, and that's going to be sponsored by two really well-known companies in the outdoor industry. I think you're really going to enjoy what we put together there, so I'm looking forward to having that out for our next podcast and guiding you in that, and really appreciate you again watching, reading, listening. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. Please subscribe to the podcast again, and thanks again for checking us out. And as I have signed off for the last 49 episodes over the last 2.5 years, I do these hour-long or however long they are programs. Have an awesome day in the outdoors. See you next time.